Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
After the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo took over Dickies for the last month and a half, Panther City looks to come back home on Texas Forever Night, taking on the Colorado Mammoth. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course joined by Andy.
Hello, hello.
Andy, sad to say, but it has been 7 weeks since Panther City played at home, and from the looks of things, they were kind of glad to be back, not on the road tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. The team's kind of a commuter team in a sense, since a lot of them live up north in Canada, but just having the familiarity of playing in Dickies and just being in your facilities and where you practice and everything has got to have a sense of comfort and relief for them after traveling for so much.
Well, and like I mentioned last week, even the comfort of having a crowd that's behind you and not really booing against you or get depressed every time you score a goal. It has to do, there has to be some happiness there for at least the team and the coaches to be back home.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were glad to see them. I know I unfortunately was out of town, but you were able to. This was the first game you were able to attend in person.
Yeah, for the first game, actually, it was really cool. I got there a little bit early, got to see some Lions foreman. Actually, ran into a guy, and I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. But if he's listening, he'll know who I'm talking about. But he actually drove up from Waco to come see the game,
Nice.
and he was a Rochester Nighthawks season ticket holder before he lived down here in Texas.
Wow.
And so he was like, yeah, I loved it down there. And once I found out about Panther City, I was like, heck yeah, I'll go to a game. And
Man.
he had a jersey and everything. So it was good to see, people kind of traveling from outside town too to support Panther City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love to see that growth. And I know based on the Mammoth games I've been to, their crowds always travel well too. And they've got fans all over the country, it seems.
I was going to say there was a good group of Mammoth fans there tonight, or at the game that night. But a little bit of pregame notes. So Goodwin, we mentioned about all these players hitting their career games milestones. Well, Goodwin, this is 100 games for him. I mean, multiple players hitting that. That's really good for us. It kind of shows a little bit of longevity with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Certainly doesn't hurt to have wily vets, and Goodwin's fit in well with our team. He's part of the transition unit along with Mehdi and Tony Malcolm. So yeah, congrats to him for hitting 100.
Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. But and then also, so Gauthier was listed on the injury list on Friday, and he was listed as questionable, but he did end up starting this game, or well, at least playing a good chunk of the game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From what I remember, I don't think he scored any goals, but he was doing his trademark, just kind of mixing things up, agitating the other team. And so glad to see that he was out there, and glad to see the return of Patrick Foley as well, after he took quite the beating in, it wasn't the Saskatchewan game, whoever we played before.
Oh, yeah. Well, Georgia, was it? No, it wasn't Georgia. It was.
I don't think was it the Riptide? We're getting all our
know.
cross. But regardless, yeah, great to see Foley out there, and he's one of the best defenders on the team. He looked like he wasn't any worse for the wear and was moving around pretty well.
Yeah, giving players that rest, I think, is really important, especially after certain injuries. But, well, speaking of Goodwin, the first thing I wrote down, Goodwin was starting at faceoffs. Ronan Pusch, I wish I would have asked her, after the game, but he was nowhere to be found on this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who knows if he was on the short-term holdout list or had some sort of injury. My suspicion is that he was sort of the odd man out, because Coach TK and Toll and Gowns, they might have been trying to look for a bit more offensive punch. So I think he might have been subbed out for Ryan Sheridan, though who knows? It might have been coincidental. Obviously, it's a long season. You got a lot of games, and you can try to mix and match your roster. But as y'all will find out, his presence was missed inside the dot.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those decisions. It's just like, there's probably a good reason behind it, but just, us average fans just said like, well, I mean, he was doing pretty good, so might as well keep him in. But yeah, no, good one starting off at faceoffs. But early on in this game, I mean, Colorado started off with a penalty only a few minutes in, and actually it was good for us because not only were we like pushing them offensively, but we were able to keep Colorado on defense a few times by getting some great offensive rebounds early on.
Yeah. Playing man up obviously helped us pick up those loosies. And although I don't think it came within the actual power play, Knox eventually was able to kind of take advantage as guys are getting back on the field and scored to put us up early, which it used to be a rarity, but now it seems to be about 50-50 whether we score first or the opponent does.
Right. Well, and actually, there was, I think, 3 seconds left on the penalty to go. So he was like last second penalty, power play shot. But no, great by Knox getting it involved early, put us up 1-0. But literally like 2 seconds later, Colorado wins the faceoff, goes down, scores, and it's tied 1-1.
That was great. Props to Tim Edwards. I've read that he's a pretty good faceoff specialist, but the fact that he basically won the faceoff, then took it in himself for the score. It was like, well, dang, that's one reason why you want to win faceoffs.
Right. Well, and we know, we talk about them every year, but Colorado is a tough team to keep down for very long. So, but we didn't expect them to bounce back that fast. But, after that, it was actually really good back and forth play. It seemed like, our offense got off a few good shots, but nothing was going in. Same thing with Colorado. And both defenses were playing really well.
Yeah.
But, finally, Malcolm, Malcolm is just, I think he's finally hitting his stride for the year. A great shot by him puts us up 2-1.
Yeah, he had one of his trademark kind of twister shots where you don't know when the ball is going to go towards the net, and so Dylan Ward wasn't able to predict it, and it led to a nice early lead.
Yeah, and he, like I said, I feel like he's just kind of hitting the stride at the right time of the year. This is something we expected to see earlier on in the season. It took him a few games, but he's starting to get there. But I touched on the defense. Defense was looking fresh, pushing the tempo early, getting really physical out of the gate for this game against Colorado.
Yeah. I think the telecast mentioned that they were trying to focus on Ryan McLaughlin and some of their other notable scorers, and so they definitely did that early. And on the flip side, Colorado, they seem to be playing pretty physical as well, in particular with Callum Crawford, probably because they've seen what he did over the past few weeks and in that big blowout win that we had, and they didn't want a repeat of that, especially in front of our home crowd. So the silver lining of that was we got to see other guys contribute and kind of get going early, like you said, with Will Malcolm getting on the board and hitting his stride.
Well, yeah, and you touched on it just now. I mean, Crawford, they were getting physical with him. He actually got knocked down, which led to a kind of an open lane for Knox to take advantage. He gets a great goal, put us up 3-1.
Yeah, it's funny because when he shot that, you're like, oh man, what happened to shit time? Hey, the ball went in. And Sheridan, I think he picked up the Lucy and then got it to Knox. So already putting Sheridan in this game was paying dividends as far as being aware and helping get us extra possessions.
Oh, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Sheridan a few times tonight. but
yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, no, but it was good to kind of, see, like you said, multiple players getting involved. So eventually there was a TV timeout. I tell you what, I feel like Colorado is one of those teams that's just really good at drawing up plays, because right after the TV timeout, they executed it perfectly, got a good goal on us, cut the lead to 3-2.
Yeah, and it seemed like the kind of goal that Gauthier gets a decent amount with us, where they're swinging the ball around, the passes are crisp, and then all of a sudden, the guy right next to the corner of the net has the ball, and he just gets a quick strike. So that cut the lead down to 3-2. Colorado, they show why they won a championship the past couple of years.
Well, yeah, and like I said, it's like when they have time to draw up something and know what to do and execute it. It's it's really hard to stop him, obviously. But I wrote this down too. Getting towards the end of the first, the Mammoth they actually ended up pulling their goalie and trying a 6-on-5 advantage for a while, and I was just like, it's way early in the game for this. I don't know what kind of strategy goes behind that. Obviously, late in the game you see this, but this is the first quarter.
Yeah. I guess they were trying to gamble to see if they could change something up because coach didn't like what he's seeing from the offense. The great thing for Panther City that almost led to an empty netter, which would have been great because it seems like so many of our, or at least one of the debuted empty netters so far came against Colorado in Colorado. So it would have been fun to see him get another bit.
I was about to say, you almost got your wish for David.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was kind of weird to kind of see that strategy early on in the game. But, after one, not a high scoring, but it was 3-2. Good to see both teams kind of, fighting it out early on. But coming out of the first quarter, going into the second, Colorado, they scored fast, 3-3. And I was just like, okay, well, that's kind of expected from them after another timeout.
Yeah, of the teams we've seen this season, I don't know that one responds quite as quickly or is able to basically kill momentum, especially when we're playing in Fort Worth as much as Colorado does. And maybe that's from the familiarity, having played them 6 times over the years, and each of those games being pretty close from what I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these teams obviously know a lot about each other. I think they kind of know their tendencies and stuff like that. But 3-3. But one of the people who also will have a good night, we'll talk about later. Jonathan Donville. He, I don't really see him take a whole lot of outside shots like he did, but great outside shot from him. He put us up 4-3. It just, I usually see him kind of more in the mid to close to the goal. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is the first time in the last few games he got a really big outside shot on goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he shot it kind of low to get it past forward. Nice to see him kind of look for a shot a bit more. The telecast did mention that he was in the arena hours before the game working on basically his shot selection. Said that after he won Rookie of the Year, he's a bit more on people's radar now. And so he's basically having to adjust to the adjustment that defenses are starting to make against him. And he did a pretty good job of it this game.
Yeah, you could definitely tell there's been an improvement from last year to this year. But again, I had to write it down. The defense stepping up again. They get some great turnovers during this next sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just physical play. Obviously, the return of Foley was great. Haas had been hurt earlier in the year, and he played tonight. Just so those guys, Hutchinson, Messenger, Sellers, basically everyone was playing great aggressive defense.
Yeah, and it really did keep Colorado kind of at bay with their offense. But as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Colorado is just a really good team. They got a really good shot off again, tied us up 4-4. But again, I don't think it was our defensive fault.
And yeah, they're just a well. When they get going, they can be a well-oiled machine, and we'll get into this a bit later. Damude had, I wouldn't say a subpar night because he did have quite a few great saves, but Colorado's, they won a championship. They know how to play together. They got a great coach. So yeah, they're going to get points one way or another.
Oh yeah. And it's just making sure. I think the one thing that we were able to do in the past is get a good lead against them and kind of keep that lead. Mm-hmm. When it's back to forth games like this, it kind of does make me a little bit nervous. But yeah, but we talked earlier about Sheridan getting involved and stuff like that. Man, start of his night, nothing fancy, but he gets a great goal, put us up 5-4. Just a physical person.
Yeah, absolutely. And with him being 6'4", both him and Knox, we got some pretty big rookies, which was definitely an area of concern going into the offseason. And he used his frame really well, his foreshadowing. This goal and other goals he scored tonight, you could tell him just kind of bullying guys around or utilizing his height to shoot basically over the defense, which is where his first goal came from, to put us up 5-4.
Yeah, no, he definitely proved it at tonight or on this game against Colorado that just he's definitely absorbing what he can and can't do on the field physically. And speaking about physical play, I mean, at that point we're halfway through the second. There's a lot of physical play, but no major penalties coming yet, no major fights. I'm like, is this the same, Colorado versus Panther City game that I've seen the last few years?
Something tells me that both coaching staffs talked to their teams and said, like, we know these are quasi rivals of ours, but this game is too important and we both need this win. So let's keep try to minimize the extracurriculars and keep it to playing box lacrosse.
Right, which is good. I mean, I'll say this, which is something I mentioned last week. I wanted to see improvement from Panther City. Don't stoop down and get these penalties just because.
Right.
Take advantage and be physical, but don't let it hinder your game. But yeah, again, Sheridan though. I mean, after that first one, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it again. Again, taking on two defenders. I think he did the same thing last week. He took on two defenders, pushed them aside, enough so he could score. I mean, putting us up 6-4.
Yeah, it was just crazy seeing him drive in and like he was able. It almost was like Derrick Henry going in for a touchdown or something. Yeah. Like he's got like a big enough frame and I guess long enough and strong enough arms to be able to hold off the guy as he's driving, and then able to get a shot before Ward can react to it. I'll get into this probably after we're done talking about the game, but he's almost like a 6'4" young Callum Crawford in some ways.
Yeah, well, and he's probably picked up a few things from him so far this year, because there's definitely some after game comments that kind of lead into that whole mentality. But and then the next thing you know, we had a face off, but we were able to get a steal, and I was like, okay, all right, even if we're not winning the face offs, at least we're getting turnovers, so we don't like let Colorado run away with it. But we've talked about him twice. Sheridan showed up again. Man is on fire. He literally gets another goal. And they mentioned it in the broadcast, but a natural hat trick for him, which is rare to see because it's literally him getting a hat trick on 3 straight goals.
Yeah. No goals from Colorado in between there. No goals from other Panther City players. Mm-hmm. It was just like, guys, this guy, maybe it's because this is his first season in the league, but Colorado certainly hadn't figured him out by that point.
Well, and I think a lot of teams who are running into him, I think it's almost like they know, like, okay, he's a rookie, and so there's not a lot of things we know about him, but at the same time, they just don't know what he's capable of, I guess. Does that mean, like, it's almost like he knows, hey, if I do this, I'll have a shot. Or maybe if stuff is stacked against me, I still have a shot, and teams haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, he's certainly got some junk in his game, both him and Knox. I gotta say, it's one thing. It's a nice thing to have bigger guys that can kind of not only absorb some blows, but dole out some punishment to the other team as offensive players. Because I know we didn't even go into it, but on one of Knox's goals, his bucket got knocked off. His helmet came flying off. And then to end the first quarter, his helmet came off too. He just picked it up, kept on playing as you do. So that last goal that we were talking about from Sheridan, that he essentially posted the defender up and then bullied him. And then as he spun to shoot, he actually switched hands. He's a lefty and switched to his right hand to get the shot past Ward. So yeah, but we'll be talking about him even more in a little bit.
Well, and I hate to reference back to even last season, but I think that's something Panther City has been missing the last few years is that physical offensive presence. Callum Crawford is a physical offensive presence, but I mean, I don't want to insult the man like Vancouver did at the beginning of the year, but he's not a spring chicken. He doesn't think he's invincible. Here comes a rookie who coming off of field lacrosse where he's just running over people. And he's like, well, heck, if I'm going to run over people, I'm just going to do it anyway. So yeah. I think that's something Panther City as an offense have been missing the last few years.
Yeah, especially at those positions in front of the net. Because, Caputo will mix it up with guys and whatnot, but he's usually playing like either right in front or playing behind it, try to sneak in a dunk. And then Gauthier will mix things up every now and then too, but these aren't necessarily like huge, huge guys. Or as with Knox and Sheridan, you kind of have to, their presence and that they're going to be big, but then they've got great stick skills on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, again, apologies to Gauthier if you listen to this, but Gauthier to me is like short and scrappy, whereas Sheridan is like the big boulder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that physicalness it really paid off for him. Unfortunately, Colorado did answer back. They got a goal, put it 7-5, but it was a good little run from Sheridan, but obviously cut short with Colorado scoring.
Yeah. Connor Kelly had a good answer. Honestly, that score that he had was one of the few times where I think our defense looked pretty discombobulated, because I think he just cut down to the middle and no one was there. So basically a one-on-one with Dame. You could tell the Panther City players were talking about it afterwards. So good read by them. Thankfully, we still had a 2-goal lead at that point.
Yeah, and I remember that play too, because again, with the view from where we are up top, like all I could see was Coach Toll like jumping up and down and yelling, and I was just like, okay, something happened. But 7-5. But man, your transition players, they at least, I think they're getting a good rhythm of showing up at least once or twice a game. Pat Foley gets a great transition goal, puts us back up 8-5.
That goal was so funny. Like, obviously it's awesome that he scored, but Colorado, they almost had like a Keystone Cops or like Benny Hill kind of moment where the guy was trying to scoop up a Lucy, and then just kind of the turf monster got him, and Foley saw it. He's like, well, shoot, I'll grab it. So he just picked it up and went one-on-one with Ward to score. And that's great to see, not just with him coming back from injury, but in front of our home crowd too, because that's one thing that really gets the home crowd riled up, is these fast break transition goals.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and then as the half was ending, again, Colorado kind of fighting back. At that point, our offense kind of slowed down a little bit, but our defense was keeping them at bay. Unfortunately, Colorado did get another really good play right before halftime. Cuts the lead to 2. I mean, it's 8-6 going into half, and I just felt like I felt like we were in a really good place by that point. Within after the first 2 quarters.
Yeah, it is a shame that they were able to let that goal squeak by, because leading up to that, Damien had a great series of both like transition saves and Lucy saves that the Mammoth were able to scoop back up. So, but 2-goal lead, you got to think, okay, we're playing at home. We got a full healthy squad. We just got to stem the tide against the Mammoth.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that looking at the first half stats, we were losing faceoffs, which was kind of the given with Push being out, and I think Patton took a faceoff or a few as well. So Goodwin, Patton, we were kind of going by what we did earlier in the season, just face up by committee. There were 10 more shots on goal by Panther City, which certainly helps, and that's probably the main reason why we're up by 2 goals.
Well, real quick, I will say this is definitely the first game where we had those face-offs by committee, and I felt like we weren't completely losing every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I think Goodwin won at least a few. Patton won the one that I saw. So, guys will try what they will, and then from what we know about Edwards, he's pretty good on them. So, everything else was pretty even statistically, which kind of shows how close these two teams are. Obviously, going in, we both had sub 500 records, but the way the league is this season, that's not really reflective of how good or bad a team is necessarily. Yeah, the main thing that I found interesting up at that point was I really liked the offensive balance, given that Crawford was essentially shut out of the net in the first half.
Right, and that's something we haven't really seen this year is Crawford being shut out like that for a long period of time at least. Seems like every game he's involved early on, he gets a goal at least or something, or 2 or 3 or whatever by halftime, and he just wasn't involved. So seeing, that offense being able to spread around, get other players involved. Knox, Sheridan, Pat Foley even getting in there with his goal, getting these other chances to score is really what Panther City needed, especially coming into this game. But, you talked about the face-off from committee. Oh, yeah, the third period started. Evan Messenger started off on face-offs, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll just they're playing roulette. They got a wheel. They're like, who's taking face-offs this time?
Yeah, it was nice to see him in there. And not only was he doing that, he was playing some great defense. I think those first two possessions, he had a great, I think he knocked it out of McLaughlin's stick and was able to disrupt a pass. 2 plays in a row, we were able to do that. But eventually, I think Brent Mitchell got a little too feisty, as he does from time to time, from what we've seen.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, a penalty is the thing that kills us every time. A penalty against us led to the Mammoth taking advantage. They go up 8-7, or no, they don't go up. I mean, they cut the lead to 1. It's 8-7.
Yeah, and McLaughlin Eli McLaughlin's I think he's their leading scorer in Mammoth history, if I'm not mistaken. And so he knew it was only a matter of time before he started getting open and seeing the back of the net. So that was probably the main bugaboos in terms of penalties there were during the game. And, don't want to single out Brent Mitchell or something, because, that's just kind of the way he plays. But yep, just got to channel that aggressiveness in a way that isn't going to result in you going to the sin bin.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something, they'll work on going forward. I had to write this down. Being there live, I was literally just yelling up in my seat, but there was a turnover or was it a turnover or the shot clock went out? Either way, Medeiros had the ball running down what looked, and again, I'm looking at from the top and I'm like, there's nobody on the right side. You have pretty much a clear path if you want to run down and try to shoot it. And he pulls up again. And I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if he's just in his head, if like he's thinking about it too much. But this is at least the third game that I can think of where it seemed like he had a breakaway chance and he decided to pull back on it.
I wasn't too mad on that one because it's like, okay, I know there was a defender back, and then the guy that was cutting down the middle for him, the spacing wasn't quite there. However, I do agree with you in that I think had this been last season, he would have taken a shot to at least kind of get his feet wet and get going. So, yeah, it's, he's usually my show me something player week in and week out. And it's funny, the telecast mentioned that he actually works a night shift up in the Canadian city that he lives in, and then goes and plays lacrosse. So it's in the back of my head, I was thinking maybe the work during those late hours is getting rough to where when he's playing games for us, he's just pretty fatigued or something. But yeah. Joking aside, that particular play, I was kind of like, okay, I get it, but it is very strange just having seen him last year and not seeing the same aggression that I think we're used to seeing him play with.
Right, and again, I don't know if it's just something he's tried to be more conscious of, but you said it last game. The fact that there's other players that have scored so far this season and he's still not, it's a little confusing from my end, but again, nothing really came from that. I mean, Colorado gets a turnover, but once a game, there's always that one play from the other team. Great goal by Colorado and a great setup by Colorado. Again, I can't be too mad about them, but they do tie it up 8-8, and I'm just like, well, I mean, it was bound to happen. It is Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all things considered, that was Colorado's second goal of the quarter. In most cases, you'd be like, okay, the goalie, Damute, he only allowed 2 goals in that quarter, so he did a pretty good job. it's just he was making great saves, but the offense just didn't look quite right in that quarter. Just kind of sloppy. We already mentioned the Median transition not looking for his shot on that particular play. So this kind of goes back to Colorado being a proven team with a good coaching staff and great players that know basically that respond well to adversity. I mean, we saw it even in the championship game that they won, or even last year making the finals appearance. They weren't the number one seed in either of those seasons. I think they were the bottom seed in both. And
they were that first season. I think last year they were able to get kind of in the middle somewhere.
A little bit higher.
Yeah.
But yeah. Regardless, they're not. They know how to play well, regardless of what their record is, or regardless of whatever struggles they may have during the season.
Well, and not to talk about another sport too much, but it's hard to keep good teams down and keep them out of games, because there's some teams like maybe the Kansas City Chiefs that find a way, even if they're not the better team, they find a way to get the plays they need and get the scores they need. But yeah, tying it up, I will say, you mentioned Daymud right before the end of the third. And I don't know if you saw it on the replay, but he had a great sliding save. He was on the left-hand side, and they passed over, or what was the left hand? No, they were on the right-hand side, and the guy passed over to the left. And Daymud, it was almost like a soccer player when they're on their knees. Mm-hmm. He got on his knees, slid over, and blocked the shot, and that place went crazy. It was so good.
Nice. Was it a net save or glove save? Do you remember?
I actually can't remember. I think it had to be net save, but I'd have to go back and check. But anyway, I mean, that really got the home crowd going. So we ended the third, 8-8. You mentioned the offense was kind of sluggish. No goals by them, which again, you really don't see a whole lot of in lacrosse.
Yeah, and it's funny because from what I remember, the closest goal that we had came at the end of the quarter when I think it was the general. I think Patton barely missed a full field empty netter to end the third.
Just we try for the empty netters, but time usually runs out. Well, that all led up to a fourth quarter that definitely was not sluggish or slow or anything like that. Because right after the fourth quarter started, Mammoth, they get a quick goal. They go up 9-8. That's a 4-0 run since halftime, giving them their first lead of the game.
Yeah. We know that they tend to start quarters well and come out of timeouts well. So Dylan Kenner had a great kind of like what we see at a Showtime now and then with a post up and hezzy move to take for their first lead of the game, which Colorado is not the kind of team you want to be down against in the fourth.
Oh no, and they knew that they had to keep the pressure, but our team knew we had to start stepping up a little bit more too towards the end of the game. Our defense forcing a great turnover. It was an over back penalty by Colorado. We kind of forced the ball past the halfway line, and I don't know, I'd have to go back and watch, but it's almost like the Colorado guy thought that the time had expired. That's why he touched it. But it hadn't, like the shot clock hadn't expired, and so he touched it, and that led to a penalty, giving us up a power play, and then you can only keep him down so long. Crawford finally showing up, first goal of the night, ties it up 9-9. Not only was it surprising to see his first goal, come in the fourth quarter, but it did put him ninth place all time in goals with 480. So hats off to Crawford, but just interesting to see him not be a huge factor up until the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had mentioned before that they were pushing him around a lot, knocking him to the ground. I think I saw him on the ground more than any other Panther City offensive player, unless it was a Sheridan diving in front of the net or something.
Right.
I mean, the way he scored was in trademark Showtime fashion, where he's twirling his stick around, just kind of catching the defense off guard, because they never know when that ball is going to come out of his stick.
Well, and after that, it was just like the fireworks went off. Malcolm, he was like, okay, well, if Crawford's going to step up, I guess I should step up too. And he got a goal, put us up 10-9. Really good back and forth at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his goal came from, I think, behind a Jason Knox pick, which, again, we keep talking about how important it is to have these big guys, and blocking the opposing goalie's field of vision is one of the reasons why we set those picks.
Well, and then, so that put us up, 10-9.
9, yeah.
Yeah, but Crawford or Colorado, I mean, just not going away. They get a great goal that's tied at 10-10. But then another power play. I mean, this is midway through the fourth, and I'm like, okay, I hate that we're getting penalties. It wasn't a huge penalty, but it was enough to give Colorado a power play. They took advantage, and they're up 11-10 at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was as my man Medi with the cross check leading to that, and so it's kind of like, oh shoot. Still plenty of time left, but not enough time to feel necessarily comfortable about a comeback per se. Especially, Dylan Ward is a great goalie, and once Colorado's offense is clicking with Williams and McLaughlin and the rest of the guys, you kind of shift around in your seats a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this: being there at the game, like, you could definitely tell, like, it was kind of a nervous energy at that point. Everybody was just kind of like, okay, I mean, Colorado's up 11-10. There's still time left, but can we make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was one person who could make something happen. That's, of course, Sheridan. Sheridan showed up, gets a great goal, 11-11, and then the man, again, I mentioned it earlier, he just cannot be stopped. This was his, big game, I guess you could say. I mean, it was Texas Forever Night, and he's like, well, I'm just going to show up as big as I can. He got 2 goals in a row, put us up 12-11. At that point, I mean, everybody in the audience was just going crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. And especially having that confidence from a rookie coming up against a really competitive team in Colorado. And, the first quarter, his hat-trick goals all were kind of utilizing his size and whatnot. But in that fourth quarter, my note here says he looked like Showtime Jr. to me.
Well, and yeah, he's learning to not only have the size, but have the ball handling skills too, to kind of throw out the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way he sold his windup on the first shot and then pulled it back, got a little closer, and then scored. It was just like, oh, where have I seen that before?
Right. But, that put us up 12-11. Colorado hanging tough, though. They answered back. Actually kind of went on a 2-goal run from them.
Yep.
They got 12-12, and then another one. At that point, it was 13-12, and there was, I think 3 minutes left or something like that, or
a little above over 2.
Over 2.
After Kelly's goal.
Yeah, and so, again, kind of a nervous energy there being at home. We were just kind of like very unsure of ourselves, and there's still time left, but we've seen this story before where we have time and we have the people, we just can't pull off the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of us were just kind of wondering, okay, what's going to happen in these last few minutes? Well, we ended up pulling Daymune with, I think about a minute left-ish.
Yeah. Quite the gamble.
Yeah. I mean, it's a gamble that you have to try. I mean, it's either, hey, we're going to tie this up or we're going to lose. And, I think the more and more I see it, the more I understand Coach's philosophy is just like, either we're going to go out and pull it off and get a score,
mm-hmm.
or we're going to just go down doing what we think is best, which is having that man advantage. But it did pay off, thank goodness, because Will Malcolm, 33 seconds left, great shot from him, tied us up 13-13. Heck, that's all we needed to go into overtime. But yeah, great shot from Will Malcolm.
And leading up to that, even, Malcolm had a shot right before that one, and he missed it kind of long. He had the foresight to track down his own Lucy, get the offensive rebound, and then him and Donville played a nice 2-man game, passing it back and forth to where the defense didn't necessarily know who the shot was going to come from to get it in. So that was great to see. Panther City's really good on the power play this year. But usually when we pull Damute and go 6-on-5, we don't do it often, but we haven't seen the same level of success in my recollection. So it was nice to see it not only pay off, but pay off in this situation where you basically needed a goal, or else Colorado probably would have gotten an empty netter.
Right. And they would have won the game. But, man, so good to see Malcolm step up like that. In overtime, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, honestly, it felt different than that overtime against Vegas. Vegas, when it was overtime against them, it was a lucky shot with 1 or 2 seconds left. And at that point, they had the momentum. Well, at this point, we had the momentum. I think everybody could kind of feel that. Even the team could feel that. So they come out into overtime, and it didn't take long. They set up a great offensive play, opened up a whole lot of lanes, but it opened up for Donville to take advantage. Gets a great score in overtime, gets us the game winner. I mean, we win 14-13, and there's an interesting note I want to touch on, but man, great play from him.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it was a little funny because it wasn't like he stung the back of the net or shot it with a lot of force. It kind of like was a pretty slow bouncer to get. I think he either 5-holed ward or got it like right past his left leg to get the score. But man, it was awesome to see the guys be able to celebrate. I think since we've started keeping up with the team, I don't recall attending an overtime win at home.
I have once.
Okay,
gotcha. I had once, and I think it was actually their first season, but I had been to one for sure.
Gotcha.
But I missed the Vegas game, so this is. Yeah. I'll just say, that one didn't count.
Yeah. So in my case, after the Vegas heartbreaker, this felt pretty good to help get that taste out of my mouth.
So basically, if you're there next time and we go into overtime, I'm just like, hey, you gotta go, you gotta leave.
Yeah,
can't be here for that. But no, what I wanted to touch on, and we talked to Coach TK after this, and even Donville about this afterwards. The play itself was drawn up to give Will Malcolm a shot, and something happened. And Donville saw a lane, and then he also saw Will Malcolm was covered pretty heavily. So he knew he couldn't get it to him for the shot. And so he was just like, well, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance. And he shot it. And so it is just kind of interesting how you draw up a play, but sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want to, but it works out even better.
I think that's part of the reason why Panther City so often runs the offense through the producer up at the top, so he can kind of surveil what's happening defensively, see where guys are covered. Obviously, you got guys like Showtime and Will Malcolm that have the ability to go one-on-one. But if they're covered well, Donnie's more than capable of hitting shots of his own, so it's great to see.
Oh, yeah, really good to see him getting some great scores this game, especially that overtime winner. I don't know, I just felt like this was a game that they needed to get a win, especially a game that was back and forth, and they kind of had to battle back, and especially with that overtime, it seemed like there's been a few games this year where we went back and forth and maybe battled back, but it wasn't enough to finish the game. This is a really good win for them, just from a mental standpoint, it'd be like, hey, see, we can fight back, and we can, even if we're down late, we can find a way to score and win a game. So really good home showing for Panther City, I would say.
Yeah, and we've got a pretty decent homestand coming up. Hopefully this will be a sign of things to come while we're playing in Dickies Arena. Gosh,
I hope so. Well, with the kind of shootout towards the end there, that of course leads us to some good stats for this game. Hopefully some good stats. But of course, that brings us to Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what do we have for this game against Colorado?
I'll go with the bad news first, get it out of the way.
Bad news first, good news after, please.
Yeah, we won, so take these with a grain of salt. Don't get too down on them. Without Ronan Pusch, the face-off woes did return. The Mammoth won 22 out of 30 of them. Obviously, guys like Goodwin and Messenger and whoever they put in there did the best they could. Again, we know Edwards is one of the more elite guys in the league, along with Trevor Baptiste and others. But yeah, I think if my theory is correct and Puech was benched in favor of Sheridan, then I'd say that trade-off worked out very well for the team tonight. And, I'm sure Puech is a team player as well. So, but yeah, obviously you'd like to see us win a bit more, so we can probably pull what Edwards did in that game in terms of scoring right off the face-off victory. But hey, you got to play the matchups, and I think the coaching staff went with the right call. This was one of the few games where the opponent actually got more power play goals than Panther City. Colorado scored 2. Panther City only scored 1 on 3 opportunities. I think that was more of a function of how clean the game was more than anything, because I don't think either team reached 5 penalties. Panther City might have had 4. Panther City had 4 total. And so it would have been nice to get a little more of that, to get more of a cushion, especially in a close game. But at least it wasn't like Colorado had 5 and we had 0 or something like that. So it was nice to see that still be pretty even. And I think that the one power goal we had probably still leads the league collectively. As far as the net goes, both goalies had kind of rougher nights. Dylan Ward saved 37 of 51 shots, and Nicky Damude saved 34 out of 47. This was both around 72%. And I think a big reason why was because how well guys were shooting in that fourth quarter. I mean, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10 goals scored in that fourth quarter alone, 5 by each team. And so that definitely made their numbers dip a little. Of course, Damude's becoming one of the best goalies in the league. Ward, one could argue, is already there. He's a championship-winning goalie. I think he was the MVP in their when they won it all. So, but it was kind of a nice showing that, like, hey, even on a night where Damude might be a little off, if the offense plays well and you apply enough pressure and play crisp, don't make too many mistakes, then even guys like Dylan Ward are mortal and have holes that we can exploit. So beyond that, you mentioned Showtime is now 9th place in goals scored. That it would have been funny had he not got it, because it would have been weird to see a game where Showtime doesn't score at all. I know it happens every now and then, but hats off to him. I'd have to look at the rankings to see if he has a chance of moving further up this season. There's enough games left to where he might have a chance. We'll just have to wait and see. Don't know if he's ever going to go crazy like he did against Vegas again. But and then lastly, this game had a lot of offensive balance. Obviously, Ryan Sheridan had a big game with 5 goals, but Malcolm at 3, Donnie and Knox had 2 each. We know Foley got in on the fun. So it's nice to see the well spread around a bit. That's something that's really good, especially when guys like Showtime, and obviously Malcolm had a good game, but we've talked about how you never want to rely on like just one guy. And Sheridan, you could say this was his coming out party, in that he more than doubled his goal output for this season so far, with plenty of games left. So, I don't know what the substitution patterns game to game are going to be like, but hopefully Sheridan can get a few more under his belt in what's shaping up to be a really impressive rookie year.
Well, and I think Sheridan said it afterwards. He was like, hopefully this means I'll have a spot next game. And I was like, yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet. But I will say this: you touched on the whole penalty thing. It does you do see that difference between games where you don't have a ton of penalties and the ones that we do, like like we did either last week or even the week before, where you have unnecessary penalties. And even though it may or may not lead to something, it gives that other team something that they can focus on, something they can kind of obviously score from. And so having a cleaner game like this, I think, was really important for Panther City.
Yeah.
As again, it showed that, hey, we can play physical without it leading to penalties. We can do things without having to pick fights and be in the, like I said, be in the sin bin too much. But I think that's really good for Panther City to learn. I think this was a really good, overall, a really good learning game for them, both from the offense, like you said, spreading it around, and then from a penalty aspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I guess being there live, did it feel like the game was a bit quicker than
it felt fast.
Otherwise might have?
Oh yeah.
Because I don't remember. I think there was maybe like 1 or 2 video reviews, maybe early on, and then after that there weren't like challenges or anything.
Yeah,
like
very minimum challenges, very minimum penalty stoppage. Obviously they have the required TV timeouts, which would slow it down. But yeah, I remember looking at my watch and it was like an hour. It was for halftime. It literally was an hour. Like the first half was an hour. It just kind of went by. So
yeah, exciting and efficient.
I was about to say they were very good, especially once you get to that fourth quarter, we were just kind of going back and forth. But yeah, no, really good game from multiple ends of this. Of course, that's Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Thank you for that. That of course brings us to our cool cat plays of the game. I'm gonna let you go first because for me, there's unfortunately a clear winner. But for you, what cool plays you got?
I'll give props to a few. I'll go with some honorable mentions first. I think Ryan Sheridan's first goal in the fourth quarter was my favorite out of his 5-goal night. Where that's where I think I said Showtime Junior out loud when I saw him with his basically. That was where he sold the windup, pulled the stick back close to his body. It got a few more steps in past his defender, and then got a nice open shot right in front of Ward to go in. So that was my favorite of his. Will Malcolm, the entire sequence leading to him tying the game was probably 1B in terms of what I would choose. Just the fact that he missed the shot and he didn't get down or immediately start running back to the bench. He had the wherewithal to grab his Lucy, get some passing and offense going with Donnie, and then being able to score after that with like half a minute left was great. Ultimately, my 1A play of the game is Donnie's game winner in OT. He had a relatively quiet game in terms of scoring the ball, and like you said, that play wasn't necessarily designed for him as the first option. It was for Will. So to see him do that and just build not just his confidence, but the team's confidence going into their next game and games for the rest of the season, I thought it was, that's my clear pick.
Yeah. A few honorable mentions for me. I will point out the sliding save from Damoud. I just thought that was great effort from him. Great stop from him. I think for me, you mentioned Sheridan's first goal in the fourth quarter. His goal earlier on during his hat trick run where he was taking on 2 defenders. Anytime I see that, I'm going to give him an honorable mention for sure, if not play of the game. But yeah, I'm like you. There's one clear-cut favorite for play of the game. That's Donville getting that overtime winner. It's just the wherewithal and the knowledge to know this is the play that's drawn up and it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take, what I see, and I see there's a chance for me to shoot, so I'm going to take it. And it's stuff like that really did, lead him to Rookie of the Year last year. Mm-hmm. Having that knowledge and having that just understanding of the game,
Yeah, it was a great audible, or I don't know what you'd call like play action. Yeah, right. Decision from him, just seeing what the defense was giving them, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get my own shot off.
Yeah. Well, no. So for both of us, obviously, that was our cool cat play of the game, which brings us to our big cat player of the game. And again, there's one clear cut favorite, and I have to give the man his props because not only was this a big game for him, I think it was a big game for the team overall, and just a big game for Panther City. But Ryan Sheridan, man, to have the ability, because they talked about this after the game. He kind of sat down for a few games. He wasn't playing for a few games, but it both Coach TK and Sheridan both said it led to him learning more and understanding more. So I bring that up mainly because the first few games of the season, we talked about how Sheridan would take these just off the wall shots. Yeah. He's like, I don't care if they're going to go in. I'm just going to shoot. Like one-handed bounce, like I'm running over people and I'm going to shoot while I'm falling down and see if it goes in between the legs or whatever. And I think what happened is, as he was watching and as he was learning stuff from people like Will Malcolm, Crawford, like, you mentioned he's probably picking up some of that stuff, is he started to understand, I don't have to take those shots. Even though I physically can do it, I need to set myself for better shots. And that's what we saw tonight. That's what we saw in this game, is his understanding and his learning of, even though I can take this shot like a crazy person, I can do a little bit more and set myself up to get a better shot. You mentioned that Crawford fake where you kind of like, oh, I'm going to shoot it and then I'm going to pull it back real quick and then shoot again. I guarantee you 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks ago, he would have taken the first shot and just been like, oh, I'm going to force it through, and it may or may not go in. But it just shows, I mean, you forget that rookies, yes, they're young, and yes, they're still getting their feet wet, especially, if they come from field lacrosse, box lacrosse, but they're still learning the game. They're still learning their entire year, their entire first season. They're still understanding not only the game, but themselves as well. So, I don't know. It's just hats off to Ryan Sheridan. I mean, that was just such a great performance from him. And it was good to see him out there doing his thing. But that's my big cap player of the game. What about for yourself?
I do want to give one other guy props. I mentioned him earlier. Patrick Foley, this was his return game from injury, and he looked great in it. He scored. He had that goal in transition where he skidded up the loose and got it past Dylan Ward. On top of that, he added 4 loosies, blocked a shot, caused 2 turnovers. So props to him for coming back and basically not missing a beat and not being afraid of getting hit in the kidneys or whatever.
Right.
He got hit last game. Like you, I got to go with Sheridan. His game against the Mammoth reminded me a lot of Knox's game against the Riptide, where it's basically like it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is his trademark game, his rookie season. He had 5 goals on 8 shots, shooting what is that, 62.5%, or if my math is correct, it's shooting over 50% basically. Tacked on an assist on top of that. Since Crawford and other guys are getting the defensive focus in a lot of our games, it's great to see others step up. Granted, now you have the defenders are going to be like, okay, we have to watch out for this guy. And I see that kind of having a pendulum effect of where, well, okay, if you got to focus on Sheridan, that's going to make it that much harder to focus on Showtime or Will Malcolm or Caputo, Gauthier, Donnie, whoever it may be. So just having that offensive versatility, basically another tool in Coach TK and the coordinator Downs' back. I think that's going to do really good things for the offense going forward. So, yeah, player of the game. Shout out to Foley. Got to give it to Sheridan.
I mean, you can't have a night like that but yeah. I mean, that's, of course, our big cap players of the game. Final thoughts on this game. I was just going to say, I mean, it was great for the home team, for them to be back home. Great home crowd. Texas Forever Night was really good. Obviously, I'm glad to see more than just Crawford, Malcolm, Caputo offensively, scoring-wise. Mm-hmm. So it's good to see those other people. And honestly, we talked about him enough, but Sheridan, I mean, 5 goals and a natural hat trick in one night. I mentioned, towards the beginning of the season, I think there's one rookie having a better season than we thought. And I think it's Sheridan. And even though Knox had that breakout game against the Riptide, I'd say Sheridan's back in the lead as far as probably the big rookie on campus for Panther City. he definitely showed off this game. So it was just really good to see Panther City, like I said, battle back, even being down late, and just finding a way to win, because that's really good for team mentality going into this, pretty much the second half of the season. So,
yeah, I don't think we mentioned it going into this game, but we were actually tied 3-3 in the all-time season series with Colorado, and this game now gives us the edge. So that's kind of cool to have. And then as far as Sheridan goes, like, I think a lot of attention was given to Knox because it's like, oh, we drafted him. Oh, he's going to spend a post-grad year or whatever it is, kind of like Donville did for the inaugural season. And so people were excited to see Knox come out and show what he can do. But people forgot, like, hey, Sheridan was number 5 pick he's our first round draft pick and came from doing great things at Hofstra. So putting him into the mix with Knox, and then all the not just veterans, but also young guys like Malcolm and Donnie and Gautier too. It's been a fun mix to see these guys grow, and seeing them compete against a title winning team like Colorado it was a great win, like you said.
Yeah, and I hope this is something they can kind of they can keep in mind when those tough games come on further in the season. But well, like you mentioned, unfortunately, you weren't able to make it to the game. This is my first experience with the after game interviews, so I would hate to say that I lucked out, but we actually got 3 people to interview after the game. But it was just a really cool experience. It was really nice. I would say, talking to Coach TK for that few minutes, he's just a really down-to-earth guy. And, it just seems like you could talk to him, for hours on end about anything. But I was able to, ask him a few questions after the game. First up was Coach TK. This is what he had to say about the game.
Oh, I was just going to say, first of all, congratulations on the overtime win. How's it feel to be back home?
We missed Texas. Missed Texas, and I think it showed tonight. Like, the boys, they certainly feel like that. They find another gear when we're here. They love being here, and it was a good win, great win.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about Sheridan's night? He had a really good night for a rookie.
Great night, and kudos to him, because obviously he sits out a couple. One of the things he brought up to our assistant coach Cal Gowner is that he's like, I learned a ton watching. And from my perspective, that's exactly what you want. You want somebody that's coachable, wants to get better, and understands, his role within the team. He sits a couple, and it could easily, obviously, no one likes sitting, but he learned it as a lesson and something to teach him and something to make him better. And he was a beast tonight.
That's awesome. And then finally, I just talk a little bit about, obviously, Donald with that overtime shot, and just kind of what he saw, what you guys saw, and set up for that shot.
Yeah, we drew something up, and it was a variety of different looks. Obviously, we set something up for Will to go underneath, and again, if he had the opportunity, we wanted him to take it. And then it was like, hey, we got a secondary option with 3 coming over the top. Great move, a great face dodge, and then kudos him for driving to the net and finishing it. And then we had a backup plan with an ISO for Sherry out of the corner if we needed. So, the best part of that all is, our guys stepped up when we needed to. I look at 4. I challenge all of our guys here. If you want to be the big dog, you got to be the big dog. And 4 gets the tying goal late. 3 steps up and gets the OT winner. That's character stuff, right? And that's those guys saying, hey, we want to be the best, and we want to prove to others that we are. And kudos to them.
I mean, the first question I had to ask was, what did it feel like being back in Texas? So it was good to see that he was excited to be back at Dickies Arena. But yeah, this is where, he's obviously talking about Sheridan's big night, but he talked about that overtime winning goal and just like, hey, this is exactly, he said exactly, we set up something to get Will Malcolm underneath, and if he had the opportunity to take it, but Donville was secondary option, and he saw, hey, this isn't going to work out. So it was a great move from not only Donville seeing what was happening, but also from Will Malcolm pulling a defense like that. So I think it's great from Coach TK recognizing kind of like, hey, even though we didn't draw it up this way, it was great execution from both Will and from Donville.
Yeah, and you love to see your coach have that kind of confidence in you to where he's gonna let you run things, and not everything. Yeah, it might start as a set play, but y'all have the flexibility to be able to figure out the best decision in any given scenario.
Yeah, and so it was great to hear that from him. I actually made the offhand comment at the end. I'll have to listen to it again, make sure I got the recording of it. But Coach TK did shave off his beard and mustache, and so right at the end, I was like, "So was shaving the beard mustache part of the game plan?" He's like, "Yeah, need a change." So
It worked.
Right, exactly. So unfortunately, I think that's the last we see of beard and mustache Coach TK. And then we talked to Sheridan. I will say this: you can definitely tell that Sheridan's a rookie, and it doesn't really talk to press a lot afterwards or have questions after a game from other than his teammates and coaches. But I asked him a few things, and here's what he had to say after his big night.
How's it going?
Good. At yourself?
Pretty good. What'd you think about tonight?
I mean, we won, so pretty pumped.
Oh, what about you personally, though? That was quite the night.
It feels good to put up the points and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all about wins. So that's what I'm pumped about. I'm glad I could help the boys.
How'd you feel being back in Fort Worth?
Love being home. Had a pretty good crowd out there today, so glad we could get the dub for them.
Cool.
What TK mentioned you learned a bunch sitting a little bit, sitting 2 games. Can you kind of take us back over the past month, sitting, and then today as the conclusion of that? What'd you learn when you were sitting up there, and was it beneficial now that you look back to kind of sit and?
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't in the lineup the last 2 weeks, and I was up in the press box, got to watch the game from a different perspective, and I think the game really slowed down mentally for me. I got to kind of watch the other guys go out there and work, and saw what I could do to help them out, help myself, and went out there today and just game was coming to me instead of me trying to come to it. So I think those 2 games really helped me kind of find my comfort zone.
Yeah, just talking to him. I mean, it was really cool. He just seemed excited for the night. He seemed like he was just over the moon about his performance, but he understood that this was just a stepping stone. He knew that even though he had a really good night, it's all about the team. It's all about the end goal of trying to get that win and get towards the playoffs this year. So really good to get to hear from him. I just think, I think it's something he'll learn the more and more he has these good games and maybe gets interviewed after the games. Maybe a little bit longer answers on his stuff.
Yeah, he got to start somewhere. But I did love his sense of humor when you asked him what the win did for him and the team. Just talking about the lineup.
Yeah, no, it was great. I hopefully he has another big game. I'd love to have him, after a game interview. And then of course we were treated to a third person because it was a win. It was an overtime win. Even he had an on-field interview after the game. Of course, he's going to come in and talk to us for a little bit. Of course, Donville coming in. Here's what he had to say after that big win.
Well, first off, how does it feel to be back in Texas?
Yeah, it feels great. Obviously, unique league where some of us don't necessarily live in Texas, but it's still good to be back. And, obviously a unique schedule here too with the rodeo being in Fort Worth. So, it's exciting on the second half of the year. Hopefully make some hay here at home.
Gotcha. How do you feel about that game winner? And then can you kind of talk about not only the impact of the game winner itself, but just the win here in general?
Yeah, it was huge. I think we've lost a lot of games like that, right? Kind of had a feel of a lot of the games that we've lost, including the playoff game last year, some other ones, we're in it late and just don't make enough plays at the end. And after every one of those, it's, the message has been we got to figure out how to win these games. And, by no means does this one mean we're going to win the next one, but it's exciting to see that we made enough plays at the end. And, And on a personal level, basically the same thing. Like, I haven't made enough plays in the end of the games to help my team win, and that's a pretty tough feeling. So it's nice to not feel that.
Gotcha. And from obviously last year with your Rookie of the Year season coming into this year, what are some things that have kind of like you've learned and translated into this season that helped you kind of get into that feel and helped you along this season?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is off the floor. Learning how to travel, learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to manage, handling this experience alone for the most part. Most other parts of your lacrosse career, you live in the same town as your teammates, or you go to the same school, and this is a more spread out experience. So you can handle the good and the bad alone for the most part. So that's an adjustment, and frankly, it's day by day for me handling that stuff. But I think that's what I learned from a lot of great veterans on our team, great coaches as well. Just how to manage being a professional lacrosse player, and I haven't got it figured out just yet, but we're just trying to get better every day.
And I feel bad for asking each one of these people what does it feel like to at least be back home this year. But I did want to get a sense of, hey, you guys have been on the road for 7 weeks. What does it feel like being back at least in a home crowd? So for him, I think, especially for him, he was just like, I'm glad to be back in Texas for a little while.
Yeah, and one thing about Donnie, seemed like he's pretty self-critical in terms of like just the bluntness of saying that he hasn't really made plays that he felt were conducive or contributed to the team winning. So, but it's nice to at least give himself props for kind of having the confidence, getting in that overtime winning goal and whatnot.
Well, and I will say this, I did make a mistake on my end. I asked a question, and I guess I should have been more specific with it, because it almost came out like a question that you would ask just in a general interview. But I asked kind of what has changed, or what has he learned from his rookie season to this season, and I meant it to be like, what has changed from last year to this year that gave you that opportunity to get that overtime goal, or kind of see things differently. And it came out more of a general question. So that's a rookie mistake by me. But he did talk about how just the experience has been different, taking care of himself during all this travel, especially, and just being able to understand, how to go with the flow a little bit better from year one to year two.
And I think that's a nice little window of what kind of goes on in the lives of these players as well. Probably the kind of thing you'd hear on his podcast that he runs, Back of the Bird. So even though it might not have been the answer that we expected, it's still nice to have that insight regardless.
Yeah, I would say if anything I've learned from this experience is whenever I ask questions after a game, it has to be specific questions, because if I'm not specific with it, it just comes out like a general question. But really awesome to hear from them after the game. So I can't wait for the next home game, especially for both of us, because I think the more home games we get to go to and get to talk to these guys, the more exciting it'll be. I hope for a lot more home win games, or a lot more home wins, I should say. But yeah, overall, great experience, and I can't wait for the next one. Well, and then unfortunately, we have to wait for another one because we have another bye week. Again, whoever made this schedule, we got to talk to. I mean, it seems like all of our bye weeks have been within 2 or 3 months of each other, just all packed into that time. But we have a bye week. At least that gives us a little bit of rest between now and then. But we come back, our next game, Sunday, January 25th, against the Georgia Swarm, a team I think we're glad to have another shot at, but at the same time, I don't know if we wanted another shot at them. You know what I mean?
I'll take it. I think you can only learn from it, because the offensive run that they went on us, I don't remember whether it was like 5, 6, however many straight goals they had. You gotta test yourself against teams that kind of have that sort of offensive punch and can go on these runs that seem insurmountable, just to test yourself and get better. And I would say, certainly at least based on what I've seen the past couple of games, like I know we lost to Saskatchewan, but only held them to 10 points. Colorado, we made stops when it counted and made things tough for them on that end. So if we can carry some of what has gone on in these past few games into that rematch, I think we'll be in good shape. It just stinks that it's coming after another bye week, like you said. Something tells me I wonder if the unified standings have anything to do with that. Just trying to get everyone's like schedules aligned and travel working and whatnot.
Well, probably, especially those teams more out east, they probably had certain things, kind of like us with the rodeo. They had to kind of work around that. They had to work around other events. So, unfortunately, that's kind of a downer for us. But I do like your point. That first game, we did come back. We fell short at the end, but I think hopefully this time we'll be a little better prepared and kind of know what we're getting into. And maybe we won't get in the same hole that we did, because I think that was our biggest problem in Georgia. We got in a hole and then we had to pretty much claw our way out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm expecting it to be a closer game this time. And you know me, I'm really optimist.
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully, I will say this. I hope Ronan Push comes back, because he actually did really good in that game against Georgia with faceoffs. But I understand if he doesn't, because obviously you want to keep certain people in the lineup. But I will say, I hope the tenacity and the wherewithal and everything we learned in this game translates into that game against Georgia, because this is the game we had against Colorado. It feels like the game that we should have had against Georgia, especially in that second half, being able to come back and almost falling short. Now we know we can come back if something happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at their record now. So okay, they're 6-4, but their goal differential is really close. Actually, yeah, their goal differential. So they've scored one more goal than they've allowed, whereas we've scored 9 more than we've allowed, which kind of shows. Of course, the Vegas game skews that a little,
right?
But it shows we're a bit more evenly matched than what the records show. Partly because they played 2 more games, but I think we'll be over the kind of little honeymoon phase of like, oh, we get to see Jeremy Thompson again. Now it's like, okay, he's our opponent now.
Yeah. We saw you. It's good to see you for the first 2 seconds, but after that, well, of course, we'll continue on with this segment. You mentioned it before, but this Show Me Something segment. I will say this, I did issue a challenge to, just the team as a whole last time. Hey, let's spread the ball around. Let's not let just one person. And they did a really good job with that in this game. But I hate to call out a person who's 9th all time in goals scored, but not getting a goal until the 4th is kind of not the calm Crawford I expected. So if I was to say anybody and point out anybody, I would say, show me something, Callum Crawford. Not that you haven't shown enough this year, but I want a bounce back game from you. I want a game where I don't want, 6. I don't want a sock trick. I don't want 7 goals. I don't want, 10 assists, whatever. I want you to be involved early, and I want you to. I want it to feel like, hey, I'm glad you got that goal in the 4th. And it was good to see everybody else involved, but you are a big piece of that offense. And I expect it's almost like my expectations have been skewed, because we've seen such high production from him this year, that when he doesn't have a high production game, it's like, what happened? What went wrong? I will say this, though. I think that you're right. I think when they start figuring out Sheridan can do the things he can do, they're going to start worrying about him a little bit more. And then that opens the door for Malcolm. That opens the door for Crawford. And it's just, you can't double team everybody. So
right.
I would say, show me something, Callum, for this next game. Don't give me 1 goal in the 4th quarter. Give me at least, 2 or 3 goals throughout the game. But I would love to see you have a bounce back game. That's my person. I mean, do you have anybody that you have in mind, or anything you have in mind?
Well, it's a long running.
It can't be Medeiros.
I mean, the long running one for the season. I got spoiled on last year's transition goals, not just by Medi, but by Tony, and I guess Goodwin's new to the team, so I'll cut him some slack. But yeah, obviously I missed seeing that be as integral a part of the game as we did before. Not even just from the like numbers perspective of scoring, but just the pressure that it puts on the defense. Just you think of a 60-minute game and the fatigue that if you're having to chase guys back and forth and then run back. Of course, it's a gamble because if you do miss, then that means your own defense is gonna have to get on the floor pretty quickly if the other team pushes it. But yeah, obviously, I'd like to see Medi do better. Well, we're still winning a decent amount, so I'm not necessarily going to harp on it this week, but yeah, I'd love to see that same aggression and intensity that he played with when he was bringing the ball up last year. So hoping for that. I would say my main focus for Show Me Something this week is actually Nick Damude, who did not necessarily have, I don't think he had a bad game against Colorado. We won after all, and he made some absolutely amazing saves. However, I would like to see that save percentage be closer to the high 70s, at least the high 70s against Georgia, because we saw what they did last time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if did Damude get pulled in that game?
I think so. Yeah. Is that the one where McLeod came out and had a good second half?
Yeah, I don't quite remember whether it was for the entire game or just for a chunk of it. Let me look at the box score real quick. Okay, yeah, Cam McLeod played most of the game, actually. So I think this is actually a great opportunity for Damude to show us something in terms of like, hey, that last game was a fluke. I know how to stop these guys. I've got the skills. I can do it. So I would love to see him not necessarily bounce back from the Colorado game where he played solid, just had a bit of a lower save percentage than usual, but a bounce back from the first game against Georgia. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to show that, hey, that was a fluke. I'm one of the best goalies in this league, and I'm going to show it.
Yeah, and I hope he does have a really good game. I mean, I think, like you said, that's something he needs to prove just for himself. And also, obviously, don't get pulled or anything like that. But, I mean, my expectations for this game are simple. I feel like we had the momentum at the end of the Georgia game, and Georgia was able to survive. Now I want us to come out this game and be like, okay, you guys might have survived at the end of the last game, but now you have to survive a whole nother game against us. And we know what we can do, and we've gotten better, and we've learned since then. So I see us going one of two ways. I see it either being another close game like against Colorado, especially where it's back and forth, maybe in the second half, or I see the offense just being like, okay, let's go on a run, and can put something together, go on a 3 or 4 or even like 5-goal lead, against Georgia, and then the next thing you know, we're winning by like 3 or 4 points. I can see that happening. I do feel like it's probably going to be closer to a good back and forth, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say a win. I'm going to say 15-13. I'm going to say we pull away early on in the second half, but I would say hopefully we survive this one. What about for you?
And I think we're going to win as well. We're going to hold. I think we're going to do a better job of holding Georgia to low double digits. Single digits, I think with Lyle Thompson, who they've got over there, that's kind of wishful thinking. But I do think we are going to win by a tally of 13-11. I'm expecting a better game from Damude. I don't imagine he'll get pulled in this one. And I'm expecting someone other than Sheridan to have a big game. I think if Sheridan plays, I think he'll do well. But I feel like we're having we've got enough talent on the team where it's almost like offense by committee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I take that back. That's
it seems like once a game, there's one person who has a big showing, and then other people contribute.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who is going to be the one that comes out this next week?
I feel like part of me, this might just be completely off the wall, but I think this is going to be more of a win by committee game than some of the other ones we've had in the past. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if someone scores 4 or whatnot, but I'm expecting multiple people to score like 3 goals each, and enough of them for the net total to amount to 13, and be enough to hold off what is, generally speaking, a pretty Lyle Thompson heavy offense on the other side.
So 13
to 11.
13 to 11. So 2-goal lead from both of us. Well, I mean, hey, it's not impossible, but yeah, I think this will be another. You know, we talked about how the Toronto was a good test early on, just to be a good team to go against. I think this is a good game, a good test for us to see if we've improved since the last time we went against Georgia. I think it's a good measuring stick to say, okay, here's where we were 4 weeks ago, and here's where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how both teams have adjusted since then. Because Georgia, I mean, they were beating a lot of people early on, but they've struggled the last 3 or 4 weeks since we faced them.
Yeah, I'm seeing that they beat Rochester this past weekend, and
but did they lose to Albany at one point?
I do think so. And then they barely beat Vancouver, I think it was. They're actually ranked. They dropped some in the power rankings because their record is a bit deceiving, given how close their games have been. It's almost like the opposite of Panther City, in that, like, our record could be a lot better than it is. Theirs could be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something we can kind of take advantage of this second time around, especially since we're at home. But yeah, I completely expect a win from us. But, well, after that great overtime when, Panther City is back at 500, which it seems like we were at 500, and then we win, and then, or we lose, and then we're back at 500 again. So hopefully this last bye week that we have kind of in the middle of everything can, kind of get out of the way, and we can get back into our winning ways. But I can't wait for the next home game. It'll be great to see Panther City take on Georgia. I believe, what is the theme that night? I think it's...
All the home games have a theme, right?
Yeah. I know at some point there's also a Marvel theme night, and everybody's been talking about that. But anyway, I can't wait for the next home game. I know you can't wait because you'll be able to go to the next home game. So
yeah.
So it'll be great for both of us to be there. As always, thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, or Twitter, and YouTube. Watch our videos on there, which actually, real quick plug, we should have a video out next week. It's our visit to Panther City Barbecue. So first time being there for both of us. Is really nice to see not only the environment there, but some really, really good food. But yeah, that'll be out next week since we have a bye week. Be sure to check that out. Once again, I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Andy.
And we'll see y'all next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.